pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. Mike Reardon, you want to come up and make a few comments? Anybody else? We'll be looking for other in just a minute. Yes. Hello. Welcome.
Welcome. I just want to talk about lane elimination and scooters on the Howard Franklin. That's a joke. Trying to keep you awake.
That's not fair.
Only for the tourists, and especially the Canadians. Everyone knows my passion since April is Drew Street. Around 40 or 50 years ago, I think the problem started when it went to 4 lanes each way, when the lanes could be 9.5 feet. I have come to learn that the 1.8 miles in 5 counties, over 3,000 square miles, driven 34 million miles a day, is a small sliver of the FDOT District 7's territory, but I'm still focused on mine. I read an article, it's 17 pages, I'm not going to read it, but it's dated in 2014 that the FDOT wrote, came from some pretty high up people in Tallahassee, and it really supports what we're trying to do with this road. But I know the speed, and I've heard a lot of reasons why they have to have a reason to do speed, but I'd like to petition for extenuating circumstances. I think extremely dangerous road. The proven data, ABC Action News has been out there twice. Intentional political neglect by many officials in the city of Clearwater, referring to it as a thoroughfare. Citizens-driven initiative that started in 2016. We wouldn't even be here if they hadn't, probably if there wasn't for Pinellas and the Citizens Initiative, we probably wouldn't all be here at all talking about Drew Street. I don't think the city was going to come forward. Anyway, page 8, 10, and 15 of the Ford Pinellas Streetscape on the website, on the Streetscape on Drew Street. If everyone could take a look at page 8, 2.5, sidewalks and bicycle facilities, page 10, 2.8, safety concerns, the table of crash data, page 15, tables 2 and 3. This was all done by Kimley Horn. They do not have a dog in the hunt. They don't make any more money whether they report something good, bad, or indifferent. I think it's fair to say the FDOT, had they been made aware by the city of Clearwater that this 1.8 mile section was as bad as it was, they would have taken action much sooner. And that's really all. I just want to keep it on the radar. I appreciate, Whit, I got your email, thank you. And we're in touch, but it's if it's 2 or 3 years away, I would really like to see just lower the speed. If anything, just to teach people to slow down, because it's going to have to slow down anyway when it goes to 1 lane each way, hopefully with a center turn lane. Thank you.
Thanks.
Happy New Year.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Mike. Is there anybody else that would like to speak that's not on an item later on in the agenda? Okay. Whit?
Do you want to have introductions from the folks who are
Yeah,
here?
let's do that. Thank you. Appreciate that. Before you start eating down there, Mayor.
Hi, my name is Julie Ward-Pachelski, and I'm the mayor of the great city of Dunedin.
Happy New Year. I'm Susie Sofer, Commissioner of the City of Bel Air Bluffs.
Good afternoon, David Albritton, Clearwater Council.
Michael Smith, Commissioner, City of Largo.
Your time is up.
Got me
I don't
off.
want to hear from you.
Commissioner, City of Largo.
B. Kennedy, Mayor of the City of Indian Rocks Beach, representing the beach communities.
I'm Whit Bland, the Executive Director.
Dave Eggers, Pinellas County Commission.
Brandy Gabbard, City of St. Pete, District 2.
Karen Seal, Pinellas County Commission.
Sandra Bradbury, mayor of the city of Pinellas Park.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have my own fan club here today.
That's awesome. Very nice. Go ahead, Whit.
We do have a couple of board members who will be arriving a little bit late, and Commissioner Long is absent today because we have the Resiliency Summit, Day 2, and 350 people showed up on Day 1. I assume a similar crowd today.
Yep, standing room only.
Yeah, and a lot of really good information there that we're looking to use that as a catalyst for a lot of our efforts in the coming year. So, I do want to call up Angela Ryan to the table. Where is Angela? There she is over there. Angela is our new active transportation planner, meaning she'll be responsible for our bicycle and pedestrian program, as well as being involved in our health and all policies efforts in partnership with a lot of other local agencies. So Angela, would you just take a minute to introduce yourself to the board, because they'll be seeing a lot of you in coming years, hopefully.
Indeed, thank you, Whit. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Angela Ryan. As you heard, I'm the new active transportation planner with Ford Pinellas. I'm very excited and honored to work here. I come with experience from working at the Army Corps of Engineers for 12 and a half years, working with environmental science, policy, and planning. After the apex of my career, working as chief, covering Pinellas County as well as 13 other counties, I was looking for a local position, and I'm so pleased to find a home with Ford Pinellas. An interesting fact about me that I just want to share is that my children are actually fifth generation Pinellas County residents. So my husband's family has been here for 106 years.
Wow. Very cool.
So I worked nationally with DC, and I was really, really looking for an opportunity to act locally and make a difference in this community that I love. So I'm very pleased to be here, and I can't wait to work with all of you.
And what is your husband's family name?
Leandri, they were actually the first Italian
Yes, I
settlers.
know who they are.
In Pinellas County.
Yes.
So.
My parents were actually friends with Dick.
Are you really?
And
right.
Francis.
Oh, wow, that's astounding. Yeah.
Yeah, Karen
Wonderful.
Williams is my maiden
Yes,
name.
okay,
Yeah.
excellent. Well, my daughter's name is Frances. After.
That's perfect.
Yep, Frances Leandri. It's so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Welcome. We're really happy you're here.
Thank you very much. I'm really pleased to be here.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
I can't say welcome to Angela without saying we really appreciate the work that Sue Miller did for 36 years for Pinellas County and Ford Pinellas, and we were sad to see her go, but happy to see her move on to retirement, and she'll be missed. So Angela's got some big shoes to fill.
Great. Okay,
All right,
we're
let's,
going
get
to
in.
recognize a couple folks here.
Yeah, take just a minute.
Where is Becky? Is she here? I don't think she's here. Okay, well then we'll switch this mug out and we'll go with Neil. Where's that other one? Oh, you got it. Okay, all right, good. Neil, come on up. So we're recognizing two of our outgoing Citizens Advisory Committee members today. Neil McMullen, we want to thank you for 8 years of service. Also one of the legacy names in Pinellas County, right? Who hasn't driven on McMullen Booth Road? Or been by the cemetery and all kinds of stuff.
And don't tell me you have that experience.
So Neil has been a member of our Citizens Committee since 2011. I think he's figured out where all the money is hidden, or at least some of it. And he's also been involved with the T-BARTA organization on their CAC and the Largo Community Development CRA Advisory Board, Community Redevelopment Agency. So Neil has been a business owner, a corporate officer in a family business, consultant to nonprofit organizations. I won't go into all your hobbies, but he is learning to play the bagpipes. So please don't ever do that at a Ford Pinellas meeting. But really just want to thank you for your service.
Let me show you.
That's right.
Just brought him along with me.
Yeah. But Neil has been very good at holding all of our feet to the fire at the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting, asking good questions, and just making sure we get good answers too. So that's always appreciated. Do you want to say a couple of words?
Just a couple.
Okay.
You know, a waggish take on what Ford Pinellas does might be that it's like elephants mating. Everything takes place at great height. It's accompanied by trumpeting and thrashing about, and the results take 2 years to be born. The reality is it's far more complex than that. And, oh, by the way, the results take anywhere from 5 to 10 years to be born. And there are a tremendous number of good people involved. There's an amazingly professional staff involved. There's a group of commissioners and Ford Pinellas board members with great and deep good faith, always trying to make decisions for the best decision for the most number of people, because they know that the consequences can last up to 100 years. We're not deciding for today, we're deciding for 50 years from today. So it's been a pleasure. In short, it's been a pleasure to serve, and I thank all of you up here. And I thank my fellow CAC board members, one of whom is here, Bob Henyon, and for all of the other involved professional staff and people interested in transit and transportation and land use in Pinellas County.
Thank you very much.
And I just wanted to add that, you know, we work really hard to get residents involved with government. And it's not always easy to do. The folks that step up on the CAC group and your leadership as chair for, was it a couple of years?
That's not for me.
Yeah, a couple of years. Yes, it is immeasurable. Thank you.
I determined to say 2 years to where we have our chairpersons rotate every 2 years. So hopefully that'll take.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. But I just wanted to say thank you personally on behalf of the board, and to you and to all the other members of the CAC, but all of our members. They do great work, and it's invaluable to us, your input. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And we have just a small token, but you can enjoy us every morning and think about your service for 8 years.
Oversized mug of coffee.
That's right. Or anything else you want in it, frankly. Neil, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you around.
Thank you so much.
And I'm just going to say a couple words about Becky. She's unable to be here today. She continues to be on our Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. She's the vice chair, so we're not really losing Becky, but she is the executive director of the Florida Bicycle Association. She's been in Oldsmar for 20 years. She's a Tampa Bay native. And she's also been a really great voice on the Citizens Advisory Committee. And Bob, thank you for being here today as well. I know you're not, but you are a longtime member of our Citizens Committee and continue to be involved. So thank you very much.
All right, while Whit's coming back up here, we'll go ahead and take on the consent agenda, which include a few things. Approval of the minutes of the November 13th meeting, approval of the committee appointments on the CAC, LCB, and TCC, authorization to distribute the annual report, approval of the community transportation coordinator annual evaluation, the map adjustment for the city of Gulfport, and the official acceptance of that, auditor governance letter, and the approval of the agreement with the media relations group. So do I have a motion for approval of that consent?
Second.
And did you get that? Because I didn't, but. Okay. Does anybody want to pull any of the items for discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the public hearings, and our first up is Metropolitan Planning Organization proposed amendment change.
We have a TIP change or amendment. So Jensen Hackett from DOT.
All right, good afternoon, board. Jensen Hackett from the Department of Transportation. Happy New Year. Back in November, at your November meeting, I came before you and presented on a TIP amendment for the 40th Avenue Bridge Northeast over the Placido Bayou in St. Petersburg. That was approved by the board. It went all the way through signatures from the MPO as well as through the district up to Tallahassee. When that got to Tallahassee, they noticed that the payback for that construction project with the local funds in 22 and 24 were erroneously placed inside the actual TIP amendment, so that added that cost along with the actual cost of the project and essentially doubled it. So when you approve that, you approved a doubled cost for that project. So what we're doing today is we are putting in the correct amount, which is the $5,488,352 number in there as part of this project. Still, same stipulations as what was passed at the November meeting, where this is going to be a local payback in fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 24. This is just readjusting that number that you guys actually approved back in November to the correct amount today.
Okay, yes, Mayor.
I'm going to ask a facetious question. If you said we doubled it before and you're reducing it back down, can we use that $5 million for something else?
Not quite. So the funding that comes
A girl's
there,
got to try.
It was a good attempt, that's for sure. But yeah, the funding that's there is just going to be that $5.48 million. So when you guys did double it, there wasn't actually that extended amount that was already there.
We almost
Nice
got
write-up.
there. Didn't quite get there. They stopped us in Tallahassee.
Any other questions? Have a motion for approval.
I make so move.
Second. And this will need to be a roll
Yeah,
call.
roll call, please.
Mayor Bujalski,
Aye.
Commissioner Sofer,
Aye.
Councilmember Albritton,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy, Commissioner Welch,
Aye.
Councilmember Gabbard,
Yes.
Commissioner Seal,
Yes.
and Mayor Bradbury,
Aye.
and Commissioner Edwards.
Aye, and the motion carries unanimously.
And just as a point of clarification, I was also able to work with the city of St. Pete during this time. This is not going to hinder any part of their construction. They were looking to go ahead with this project starting in March. So we're still under the same timetable, so this will be able to get through their, all their processes coming up in March, so.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Will it have to go back through the chain, back up to Tallahassee?
Yes, it's gonna go, when I get back to the office this afternoon, this will be put in, the MPO will sign it, we'll sign it to the district, it'll go back up to Tallahassee to sign, and then off to FHWA for approval.
All right.
Yep,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, we have some procedures to go over before we get into the 3 cases for the Pinellas Planning Council. We're supposed to do that for the MPO as well, but we'll skip that. So at this time, we will begin the Pinellas Planning Council public hearings. I will first ask the staff to present these items. Then any of the local applicants desiring to do so may address the items as well. Once the reports are given, I will ask the proponents of any of the proposals to speak, and then the opponents, and finally any other citizens who wish to comment or ask questions on any of the sub-threshold cases, land use cases. We will then hear rebuttal by the applicant as necessary and a staff response or summary. At that point, the board will ask questions, then I will close the public hearing, and the board will deliberate and take action. So there we go. We'll start with case 2001, and Jared.
Jared Austin will give the
Jared
presentation.
Austin, come on up.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Today I'll be going over case 2001 submitted by Pinellas County. Pinellas County is seeking to amend a property from residential low medium to residential medium, and the purpose of this amendment is to allow for the existing assisted living facility to increase the number of beds within the facility without increasing the overall density and intensity of the facility. The location is at 11290 Walsingham Road. The area size is roughly 1.79 acres. The existing uses are an existing assisted living facility, and the surrounding uses are residential. This is just the front of the subject property. This is some of the residential to the east of the subject property. Some more residential to the south of the subject property. And here you can see the current category of residential low medium, which does currently support the existing assisted living facility. However, the local future land use and zoning that would support the increased bed amount would be better supported under the residential medium category, hence the proposed change. As part of our analysis, we look at a series of relevant countywide considerations for each of the cases that we oversee. One of these countywide considerations includes level of service. This amendment area is located at the intersection of Walsingham Road and 113th Street North. Currently, Walsingham Road is designated an LOS or level of service F roadway. However, county staff has indicated that the proposed land use change would result in a minimal increase of 54 trips per day, which could be supported by 113th Street North. In addition to this, we also look at scenic non-commercial corridors, or SNCCs. This amendment is located on 113th Street North, which is considered a scenic non-commercial corridor. However, county staff has indicated that no additional expansion to the current assisted living facility is required, and the increase of traffic is de minimis when compared with the current traffic volume on 113th Street North. In conclusion, we believe the proposed amendment is appropriate for the intended purposes and is consistent with the locational characteristics of the residential medium category. And on balance, we believe it can be concluded that the proposed amendment is consistent with the relevant countywide considerations contained in section 6531 of the countywide rules. And here's just a brief overview of the various countywide considerations we take a look at. And in addition, there were no public comments on this case.
Okay, thank you, Jared. Any questions for Jared? Yes.
Jared, just help me understand how the beds were increased, based on what? Is that like looking at the entire property and then, factoring that in? Because I don't understand how the bed number increases based on this change, and just for my edification.
Yeah, based on the current land use category, essentially at a local level, they cannot actually increase the number of beds that are currently allowed under their local future land use and zoning. So because they had to change that at a local level, that it triggers a change on our map to an increased residential medium category.
So what are we counting in addition to, like the parking or something to increase that bed count?
It would be based on the density, so the units per acre allows for a certain amount of beds. Am I getting that correct? Yes. 3 beds per unit per acre, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Anybody? Yes, Mayor.
I have a couple of questions. One, were they not considered to do a conditional use on this property instead of actually changing the zoning? Because that creates a pocket and sets a precedence for things all around it to expand to the same density. By creating one, then you're going to give an opportunity for anything, on all 4 corners to have the same capabilities, because we've done one now, instead of them doing a conditional use for that property.
I'm not sure if that a countywide, if the county wants to speak to this at all in regards to their process.
And the reason why I'm asking is because the mobile home park right there is a perfect example.
Right.
They could come in, redevelop that, and then create a higher density there as well. So we're setting a precedence by doing this.
Good afternoon, Michael Schoderbach, Pinellas County Planning Department. This is a request for change based on assisted living facility. It was established in our residential district, required a Board of Adjustments special exception type 2 use approval on this property. And in the past, they've had a couple of increases, and the last one was to increase the size of the building with the understanding that it could, in the future, they could possibly accommodate more. They only had 54 beds at a time. Now they have the room in the interior to go up to 80 beds. So the last time it was reviewed for a site plan review, that consideration was taken a look at the size of the building, the amount of space. This property, they handle a lot of low-income, affordable ALF properties. What this company runs, most of their residents, they bus, so traffic impacts are very minimal. We did look at the surrounding area and the surrounding corners, and just based on what's out there, that is very well established, that we did not see that this would be setting a precedence. It's an isolated use that's been out there. It's been through many approval processes before. We had no objections from the adjacent mobile home park. We don't see that that's expand. This is another established mobile home park. Across the ways are established neighborhoods. So staff did not find that this would be a precedent setting on any of those other corners.
So if the mobile home park gets sold and they want to build townhomes there, then we're going to tell them no?
Well, anybody can apply for a land use and zoning change on their property. That's their right to. And if they would, somebody wants to, they decide to sell and come in and request a change, they have that right. But I can't tell you whether it's going to be supportive or not. That's something.
Well, that's the reason why I asked for if you guys considered a conditional use for that property as it is established today versus a permanent change in the zoning and land use.
But as the use, we require it as it's a type 2, it goes to our Board of Adjustments. So any expansion of the facility would have to go back to the Board of Adjustments, besides the density and stuff, which goes through this process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Did you have anything else that you wanted to?
No, just answer any other questions anybody has.
Okay, thank you. there anybody else that would like to speak on behalf of the project, or any concerns? Okay. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
Move approval.
Second.
Commissioner Welch and Commissioner Seal. Okay. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right, now I'll be going over case CW 2002, submitted again by Pinellas County. Here, Pinellas County is seeking to amend a property from residential low-medium to retail and services, and the purpose of this amendment is to include a portion of an adjacent parcel into a currently vacant commercial property for future redevelopment. The location is at the west side of Alt 19, 180 feet north of Crystal Beach Avenue. The area size is roughly 0.22 acres, and the existing uses are vacant. The surrounding uses are commercial and residential. So this is just the front of the subject property. This is the broader property as a whole. This is just north of the subject property. And this is to the south of the subject property. Here you can see the current category of residential low-medium, which does support retail and service uses. However, being that this is being incorporated into the adjacent commercial property, we felt that it'd be better suited for our retail and services category to provide consistency. Again, taking a look at the relevant countywide considerations that we do take a look at, one of which includes coastal high hazard areas, or CHHAs. The proposed amendment location is located within a CHHA at this small portion, the south end of the parcel. However, the proposed land use would not actually increase residential density on the property, and the southernmost portion of the property, which resides partially within the CHHA, is actually going to serve as a drive-through space, not an actual increase of the building development there. In addition, we also take a look at level of service. Here, the proposed amendment is located off of US Alternate 19 North, which is an LOS-F roadway. However, again, county staff has indicated that a traffic study and/or transportation management plan identifying improvements necessary to address the impacts of the project may be required during the site plan review phase. In conclusion, we believe that the proposed amendment is appropriate for the intended purpose and is consistent with the locational characteristics of the retail and services category. And on balance, we believe it can be concluded that the proposed amendment is consistent with the relevant countywide considerations contained in section 6531 of the countywide rules. Again, here's an overview of the relevant countywide considerations that we take a look at. And again, there were no public comments on case CW 2002.
Any questions? Yes.
What is it gonna be now?
I'm not actually sure what the development is.
You mentioned a drive-through.
Oh, yeah, this portion of it will be a drive-through for the proposed development.
Do you know what it is? I'm just curious.
I'll show you a concept plan that was submitted along with the application. This is US Alternate 19. The property owner owns both pieces. In the back, they're looking to do 6 to 8 townhouses. In the front, it's retail. They're proposing a drive-through. They'll have shared access, one access off of Alternate 19 that's shared between the residential and the retail. They're going to share stormwater facilities as well on the development. But they needed more room here in the back to be able to accommodate traffic circulation because of the location of an ingress-egress easement to that rear of that property.
Okay.
I don't know the specific use.
What's the depth of that piece, do you know? And what's the depth of the property from 19? From Alt 19 to the back of the?
All the way back?
No, just to the back of the requested increase.
Looks like 134 plus about 25 additional feet.
The 25 is the
is the requested
Okay,
increase there.
okay,
It's that hatched area.
okay. Thank you. Anybody? Oh, yes.
Is there an ordinance for a buffer between residential and commercial, or it's all going to be encompassed under this, that you can have it as a mixed use?
We do have requirements for buffering, since it's the same owner. If they come in as the same development, we can take a look at that. The stormwater pond is going to straddle the property lines, and the way they have it designed is to preserve some vegetation out there. We have strict, we call performance standards when you have a non-residential, especially if there's drive-through or delivery vehicles coming in that's adjacent to the residential, that they have to have fencing or vegetative buffering, or if they have existing vegetation on the site that meets the intent of that buffering
Is it in
requirement.
that plan that you just showed? Because it seems like it's between the townhouses and the residential and the commercial. Is that the retention pond in the middle?
This is the
Okay.
retention pond. This
Okay.
is a large tree that's the way it's designed is so they can save that tree. They are proposing on this plan fencing up as well as other vegetative screening on that.
So in your professional opinion, do you believe that that meets the requirements of the buffering between residential and commercial?
On this proposed, once they actually submit, we would take a look at that at the site plan level, but yes, we've had meetings with the developers on this, and they've provided us this plan, and our environmental staff at our development review services has taken a look at that and given them that information.
Thank you.
And as for the existing residential around there, we have, there's some alleys in between, so there's additional buffering there, and on the south side, there's kind of a small canal that comes in, so we feel there's additional buffering on the north and south side as well.
Commissioner Welch?
Thank you, Chair Eggers. I was going to ask your Eggers site plan question, but I won't do that. On slide 10, you've got that coastal high hazard area map. And I was just curious, given the conference that's going on right now and some of the issues we're talking about, how often do we update that map? How often is that map updated?
That's through the state that updates the coastal high hazard area.
Is it 6 years?
About there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how long does it take us to update our processes? Say if this map changed and this entire parcel was in the CHHA, how long would it take us to reflect that in our procedures?
Well, once we get the data for the new map, we have that in there, and at the county level, we have, if there's any future land use amendment, we limit it to a maximum of 5 units an acre at the county level. And we also, in our commercial general, at the local level, we allow residential in commercial general, but not in the coastal high hazard areas. So with this request is changing to commercial general at the local level, it's actually removing potential density from that.
I'm just curious about the procedure for updating this map that we're looking at.
We would get the data from the state and add that through our GIS.
That's every 6 years.
And go in there. Whenever they update it, yeah.
And is it in our GIS system?
It is.
It's automatically based on the address we know? No manual updates at all? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for the project or against the project?
Change in 6 years.
Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the board for a motion.
Move to approve.
A lot of it.
Second. You have it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to our third case.
All right, so today I'll be going over CW 2003 submitted by Pinellas Park. So Pinellas Park is seeking to amend a property from retail and services and target employment center overlay to the employment and target employment center overlay category. The purpose of this amendment would allow for the redevelopment of a currently vacant property into an outdoor storage facility. The location is at 12551 US Highway 19 North. The area size is roughly 0.45 acres, more or less, and the existing uses are vacant. Surrounding uses are heavy commercial, light industrial, and some heavy industrial. This is just the front of the subject property. This is to the north of the subject property. This is to the south of the subject property. And to the west of the subject property. Here you can see the current category of retail and services and target employment center overlay, which does allow for some light outdoor or light storage uses. However, given the nature of the project and the associated local future land use and zoning, the employment category and target employment center would be better supportive of a heavier storage use. To conclude, we believe that the proposed amendment is appropriate for the intended purpose and is consistent with the locational characteristics of the employment and target employment center category. And on balance, we believe it can be concluded that the proposed amendment is consistent with the relevant countywide considerations contained in section 6531 of the countywide rules. In regards to public comments, we were notified by city staff that a property and business owner in the area had sent a letter to the commission prior to the meeting with concerns about rodents, traffics, and aesthetics. However, only the applicant's brother-in-law had spoken at the meeting on the item and was supportive of the request.
Any questions?
I can
Yeah.
make a statement. That came through, that letter came prior to their wanting to redevelop it and prior to them cleaning up the site to the vacant land. That was from prior usage on the site.
Okay, thank you. I do have a public request comment from Joseph Lalamat and his wife Catherine. Did you both want to speak or?
Sister-in-law.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
But I just jumped the gun
Sister-in-law,
on that
not
one. I
wife.
apologize.
Sister-in-law, very clear, sister-in-law. I'm actually the property owner, and I was actually present at all the previous
Okay.
meetings as
Are
well,
you
so-
each going to take 3 minutes? Or?
No, we can just get
Okay,
this all done very
fine.
quickly.
Go ahead.
Go.
We're just letting you know that that spot right there is actually really great for us, and right there, we've cleaned it up. When we first got there, it was rats and everything. I mean, that's a true statement. We cleaned it up. We put grass down. I mean, it was piles of rocks and dirt, landscape timbers. I mean, it was an eyesore. We're right there, the entry of Pinellas Park and the exit of Pinellas Park. So, you know, we take pride. We live there too, so we have to keep it clean and nice. And we're not moving out. We're not renting it from somebody. So we want to take pride. Maybe one day you can sell it to someone else and make $1 million and move out to the sticks and raise chickens and cows, you know. But anyways, we've done everything that's required. When the city asked us to move everything off, it's cost us a lot of money. We're renting a separate place, but we complied with them exactly. Wasn't right away because we were like, oh, why are you picking on us, you know? But
No.
we're just doing it, and it's a family business, so.
Yeah, we're a family locally
Thank you.
operated business, just a few of us. We're just trying to keep our business running, and we are gonna clean it up. We're gonna put a wall up so you can't see what we are storing behind, you know, on the property.
Well,
and
you can see it
such.
above the
Well, from US
highway.
19, but you're doing 55 miles an hour, so I mean, you're not getting, or 65, yes. So it is a hardship for us right now for this not to be changed, because I am having to pay someone else every month to keep our stuff on their land, instead of using the land that I pay a mortgage for every month. So I'm paying twice, and it's just kind of a financial hardship. We are a very small business. We're not very large, so. But,
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any questions?
or is that
No.
later? Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks. Anybody else that would like to come forward, speak? Okay. Anything else, Jared?
I think that's it.
That's it? Okay, I have a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank.
Got it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Yep, all set. All right.
Happy birthday next month. February 4th, right?
No, I'm in August. Thanks anyway.
All right. You doing the PSTA report? Okay. We'll move on to PSTA activities report. Councilman Rice.
Thank you, Chairman Eggers, and my apologies to the board for being a few minutes late today. I'm giving this report for Commissioner Janet Long. The PSTA board met on December 11th, 2019. We are going to start off with a very moving Good Samaritans report. PSTA began its December meeting with a heartwarming story about our 19-year veteran PSTA bus operator, Barbara Izari. Barbara takes great pride in her work and cares deeply for her passengers. She noticed one elderly passenger struggling to carry his bags off the bus. So one day she helped Herb take his groceries to the door and noticed that he needed additional help. With no family in the area and a diminishing ability to care for himself, Herb had not been able to properly manage or clean his home. So Barbara took it upon herself to help him and enlisted kind passengers on her route to help her clean Herb's home. So Barbara and her willing passengers, Judy and Hopeton, continued to check in on Herb and to help maintain the cleanliness of his home and to make sure that he has assistance when he needs it. So this was a really inspiring story of how people riding on the bus together create a caring community and create their own kind of family through the community of riding the bus together. So, next update is on the electric bus charging station. The PSTA board approved a contract to install our first en-route charging station for our electric bus fleet. We've been operating our first electric buses since November 2018, and they've been doing really well. So well that we were able to install this wireless electric charging plate at our own PSTA facility and to use it for the expanding electric fleet and the usage of the fleet across the entire system. So thank you to the Pinellas County Commission for believing in this project, especially Commissioner Welch, who I think took the lead on. Yes.
Or Commissioner Seal.
All of our commissioners for allocating the BP settlement funds for the purchase and installation of this electric charging station. We're very excited about this advancement in the PSTA system and look forward to opening the charging station in May of this year. Last update are board elections. I'm very excited about the work PSTA has planned over 2020 as we continue to be one of the most efficiently run agencies in the nation. That's comparing to our peer benchmark studies that we do annually. We have exciting projects to advance, including Central Avenue BRT, our electric bus and sustainability programs, and our continued service partnerships with cities and the county. In January, we will welcome a new chair of the PSTA board. We will be welcoming Commissioner Joe Barkley from Bel Air Bluffs. He will be supported by Vice Chair Commissioner Pat Gerard and Secretary Council Member Gina Driscoll from St. Pete. And although Commissioner Long is unable to be here at our meeting today, she is presiding over the inaugural Tampa Bay Regional Resiliency Coalition Leadership Summit. I would like to personally thank her for her service and her passion as chair of PSTA over the last 2 years.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Appreciate that update.
Thank you.
And Karen, Commissioner Seal, you going to give us the update on T-BARTA, please?
Yes, we had a meeting December 6th at the PSTA building, and we had a discussion about future meetings being held where all technological capabilities were present. So live streaming and conference phone access. Some of our peer counties and other places don't necessarily have that technology. So we'll be trying to work on that. Our executive director compensation was increased by 3%. We talked about changing our frequency of our meetings to bi-monthly rather than monthly. just because, efficiency and being effective and the use of time. We had a legislative update, and then T-BARTA Commuter Services is now being rebranded as Commute Tampa Bay. And that includes like our van pool program and everything else that we try to encourage people to be more efficient in their transportation options. And that will launch in February. And then finally, Pick My Kid, which is a school dismissal program that was started by a father who had the wrong child put in his car. And so he had a very successful technology company, so he decided to start this. And it's 16 schools are using it, but I'm going to encourage that the public school system here in Pinellas take a look at it, because none of the public schools picked up on it yet. And it's really a very cool application. You can, Google Pick, P-I-K, My Kid, and take a look at the capabilities of the system. And then we meet next week in Manatee County.
Thank you. Any questions? Over Commissioner Seal. Thank you, Commissioner Seal. Appreciate that. Okay, Sarah Caper is going to come up and talk to us about Safe Streets in Pinellas and Vision Zero initiatives. Hi, Sarah. Welcome.
Hello. Good afternoon. So this afternoon, I'm going to provide an update for you on where we are with our Vision Zero effort. And the first big piece of news is we have a branding for it, which is Safe Streets Pinellas. And this is our logo and branding for it. We're really pleased with the work the consultant has done so far. And some of the details include the dots, which represent the local governments in Pinellas County. There's one for each of them. And they also tried to pick up on some of the unique things that we have to our area to make this logo specific to Pinellas County. And one of the things that we could do with that is the crosswalk with the E's. That works just because of the E's in Safe Streets Pinellas. And then there are versions that are monocolored, so we can use them in different ways. So a little bit about what Safe Streets Pinellas is. We've talked before about how this is a Vision Zero effort and what makes Vision Zero different from other safety initiatives. And one of the big differences is it changes how we think about safety and how we think about how it is part of what we do. And so it is a systemic approach. It looks at our entire system. It looks at the different components and changing the way we do things from a behavior aspect, from an enforcement, public health, education. Everything goes together to make our system safer and better for everyone who's on our transportation network. And the whole background of it is that fatalities and injuries, severe crashes are preventable. We shouldn't just accept that people will be killed on our roadways, but we can say, that's not okay, we're gonna do something different. The big final product that we're looking for with this initiative is to have an action plan. It will have a high injury network. It will have profiles of our major collisions. They're gonna focus on fatal and severe injury collisions and see where are they happening, how are they happening, are there trends that we can then address? We will look at two types of countermeasures. There'll be non-engineering countermeasures. They might be legislative, it might be education, it could be policy. We'll wait and see what comes out of that. And then also engineering countermeasures. How can we design our roadways, our sidewalks, our bike lanes differently to make them safer? The last piece of the action plan will be steps to implementation. How can we as Forward Pinellas make this happen? And how can we work with our partner agencies to make this happen? One of the big pieces of Safe Streets Pinellas is that it's not just us. We need partners and we need the community to support what we're doing and be a part of the solution. So as part of that, we are developing a task force of about 15 to 20 people. It will be a range of people from local government staff, public health professionals, enforcement and education. We're looking at a range of people who can help us provide that technical support to make this happen. And then we're also looking to have ambassadors. Ambassadors will be community members, and we're really hoping that you can help us with developing some ambassadors for our program people who can spread the word on Safe Streets Pinellas, we are going to be doing 4 demonstration projects. The demonstration projects will be kind of testing Vision Zero to see what measures we can take. Does it work in Pinellas County? Does it work on a different type of road? And so we're going to look to our ambassadors to help us develop projects, spread the word about projects, get people excited about Vision Zero and Safe Streets Pinellas. The other component is we are going to have a summit to kick things off. We tentatively have February 27th scheduled, but there are some moving parts and that might change. We will get to you as soon as we have a set date and time and location so we can get as much attendance as possible. And with that, I'll take any questions you might have. Oh, I forgot to mention, Chair Eggers is going to chair our task force as well, so we look forward to having you.
We have our first new member since he's not here anymore. Mike Reardon, who was here earlier, he could be that. We're volunteering for that committee.
We are looking for volunteers, and we have a limited number of spots on the task force, but we can have as many ambassadors as we want. And so if you know of anyone who might be interested, please let them know to contact us, or we can contact them. If you give us their information, we would love to have as many people as ambassadors and participate with demonstration projects.
Thank you. Do you have a question? Councilmember Rice?
Thank you, Sarah. I'm so glad to hear this presentation. A couple of the more recent fatalities of pedestrians and crosswalks has happened in my district in St. Pete, and it really got me to thinking about how even elected officials, I think we should all be ambassadors and work with you and work with the consultants very inexpensively. We could all do a 30-second PSA, put it up on social media. There's so much that we can do where we can use our voices as officials to remind people of basic safety steps. I mean, I've jotted down at least 20 things that could be potential PSAs, but even just starting with crosswalks would be hugely important, and I think that would be a part of helping to change the culture, because I think people just have to hear these messages repeated, and that's something that I think we could play a role in helping you do.
That's great. Education is a huge component of this, and outreach.
And education never ends.
Right.
No.
It needs to be continual.
Mayor Bradbury?
Thank you. Is there any way that you can kind of get a little flyer together that each one of the cities and the county can post on our webpage?
Certainly, we can get something for you.
You know, like Facebook pages and things like that, talking about getting it out there. The other thing is, are we reaching out to the schools?
We are.
Because,
yes.
you know, adults walk across the street anywhere they feel like it, and they're not teaching the younger generation that that's not okay. And to get the younger generation used to going to the crosswalk and walking through the crosswalk, you know, and as well as, you know, as they grow up and start driving, to be mindful of people in crosswalks. So, you know, the
Yes.
younger that we start teaching them, the better off we'll be in the future too.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. We are engaging with the school board to ask them to participate on the task force and with this as well.
Very good. Good question. One thing I'd like to just mention real quick, and I think we may have a comment down here, is that in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've had 2 fatalities of people not in crosswalks crossing. And yet, if you look at the Google Earth map or Google Maps, there's not a crosswalk within 3,000 feet of those locations. And yet, on one side, we've got mobile homes, and on the other side, we've got a commercial property like a Publix. And one of those fatalities was on Gulf to Bay between Coachman and Belcher. And of course, everybody on social media blames the victim for not being in a crosswalk, but are you going to walk 3,000 feet to Belcher and then another 3,000 feet back if you're 75 and elderly? And I probably won't do that.
And without groceries.
That's without groceries, right. And then the other one was on Alt 19 in Palm Harbor. And again, same situation. It was right there, I think, near Georgia Avenue, not a crosswalk anywhere close. So we've got to think about not just blaming the victim and looking at how we're designing our streets and how we're citing land uses. And you know, maybe we need to look at some more mid-block crossings and not just worry about vehicle speed on some of our roadways. So it's a balancing act. But I do get frustrated when I see people just piling on somebody who died or lost a loved one because
And the arms
perception is they
across
didn't
the
do something
roads
right.
is helpful too, because if it's 3 lanes, you can't count on that middle lane knowing what's going on.
That's a good point. So part of our initiative with Safe Streets Pinellas is to really figure out where we want to put our efforts and where that coalition of partners is willing to put its efforts. And so it may be things like crosswalk safety, right turn on red, it may be something else. But that's something we want this summit to help identify where our focus should be. Because as an MPO, as a countywide planning agency, we're going to need all of our cities, we're going to need law enforcement, we're going to need the police departments, the schools to be our partners on this. And they're really the implementers along with the Florida Department of Transportation.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that and your presentation, and I like the originality of the logo. I think it's nicely done. To piggyback on Mayor Bradbury with the flyer, could you include some tips or responsibilities for the ambassadors so we can encourage people to be part of this program, please?
Sure, we can definitely do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I like the logo too, but I couldn't count the dots fast enough to see if you had the right number.
We'll
But-
put it on the flyer.
How many dots are there?
But I thought it was great. Yeah, I was just looking at some of the fatality, the fatality numbers in general from 2 years ago to last year dropped from 120 to 90, which is it's great. It's awesome. 90 people means we're losing a person every 4 days. Not good, and not to mention all the other close calls. It'll be interesting to see, if you look at that map, it really starts to lay out where these things are happening. I don't know if there are trends to note, like you just brought up a couple that you said, that would help each of our cities and the ambassadors when they're going out there to talk to people about where to be extra careful. I mean,
Yes, and that's one of the things the High Injury Network will look at. It'll piece out the data that we have on the crashes, both the fatal and the serious injury crashes, in different ways to see what kind of trends there are. Are they seasonal? Are they nighttime? Is it, if we have the information, male, female, ages? They're looking at a range of things to see what might be helpful. And actually at the summit, we'll look at some of those maps as well.
yeah, well, and one of the things I noticed in that report is that we lost 19 people on motorcycles, and the couple that I read about, actually, it wasn't their fault. Most of the motorcyclists are pretty responsible drivers, right? But they're subject to all of us being a little more careful. So those of us on the dais here who have motorcycles, I just hope and pray you be careful. It is really pretty dangerous. So anyway, I'm looking forward to this group and seeing how we can elevate the awareness of the issues and the problem areas that we have. So,
Zero bars.
Thank you.
Well, no, I was
Anything
gonna-
else?
I just, Mayor,
Sorry.
Whit and I were talking about Gabe Klein, who did a program in Chicago. And one of the things, I was just thinking when you bring the ambassadors together, that one of the things that he did was there was such a problem in Chicago that they put up fake people, and those were the number of people. Each one represented a person that had been killed, regardless of how, as far as being hit by a car, whose fault it was. It didn't matter, so that it was a realization as you drove by and you saw that, that this was a person who had lost their life. And, the whole idea of the Vision Zero is, yes, the numbers have went down, but the whole idea is that we don't want anybody to be killed by that. We lost on our bridge a young girl that was on her way to be a police person. She was in her last year of high school, and she was leaving work, and she was hit by a drunk driver on our bridge in Indian Rocks Beach a few months ago. So I guess where I'm going with this is, when you have this group, are you going to be trying to come up with some innovative ideas so that people can recognize what is happening, so that they get a better realization of, I think a lot of people know that we have a problem with it in Pinellas County, but something that will really shock them, because I remember in reading Gabe's book that when they did that, it was controversial at first. Some people don't want to see things like that, but it really helped this picture that you would see when you would wipe by these dummies that, had been hit. Are you looking at things like that?
We are. We're trying to come up with a lot of ideas. Really, nothing is off the table at this point, and we'll see what kind of countermeasures we get, and also what kind of demonstration projects we want to do. If something like that could be a demonstration project, or something else that we test out and see how people react. Definitely.
Even using our information boards that we have around the county, letting people know the fatalities the previous month. Please be careful, buckle up, keep your cell phone down, pay attention. We lost 2 last month or something, whatever would be helpful. Just to get, making people more careful. We get in there for some reason, flying around with 3,000-pound cars and just feel like, we don't have to pay attention, So, anyway, anything else from anybody? Okay, thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. Okay. Move on to our 54th Avenue Complete Streets update. Jared? And/or is Kimley going to join?
He's Kinley. Where's Horn?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking right. Yeah. Sorry about that. I was looking.
Oh, you're fine. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. So we called this Lellman Community-Based Planning, Getting Stuff Done. I'm really excited about everything that's happening, and so we're going to talk about 54th Avenue, but also Lellman in general. And I have to thank Ford Pinellas and the great job that Pinellas County staff has done. This has really been an exciting effort. So again, we'll hit on kind of the Linking Lellman Action Plan as well as the 54th Avenue Concept Plan. Both were approved in last year, March timeframe. So this is kind of the overall area we're looking at. You'll see Pinellas Park to the north, St. Petersburg to the east and south. We have Kenneth City and unincorporated area, West Lellman to the west. So this is 2,500 acres. It's the CRA. We actually kind of went a little bit further than the CRA just to coordinate with our local partners. So why Linking Lellman? Why 54th Avenue? A lot of these pictures are from 54th Avenue, and Caroline, the PM on this project, was fantastic to work with, and she hates when I usually showed pictures of her walking along this corridor where I'm not trying to dramatize this, but I felt like we almost lost her when we were crossing 54th Avenue. We were having some of those discussions just earlier. Walking along the corridor, Caroline was literally talking to us about some of the deficiencies, and a truck went by about 3 feet from her arm. So it's just not a roadway we would design today. And so a picture of 54th Avenue is on the right side there. Lots of barriers with the railroad coming across there. And this is a community with a third of the area does not have sidewalks. A lot of the area does not have lighting as well. And there's a significant portion of people that don't own a vehicle or that own one vehicle. So a lot of barriers to deal with. So that's what really started the process, and I can't take credit for this. It's a beautiful cover that Pinellas County staff put together, and won the grant in 2017, and really this kind of kick-started a lot of the conversation. And really staff kind of took a look at 54th and said, why don't we look at the entire CRA area? The CRA plan had been adopted in 2016. So this became kind of an overall plan along with the corridor plan of 54th Avenue. So we were just having this discussion, and I can't help but say 90 fatals in the entire county, Commissioner Eggers, and then there were 19 here in just Lellman in 5 years. So it's an issue, and I always like to look at that number of incapacitating injuries. Not that I like to look at it, but 206 people, you can oftentimes multiply that by 10, how many people are impacted. So it's an issue. 10 pedestrian fatals in 2016 alone. This is kind of the map and really draws out some of the main corridors. You've got the 34th Street, US 19 corridor there, north-south, running into St. Pete and then Pinellas Park. 49th Street, 54th definitely pops out, and 62nd Avenue. So I feel like I'm giving all the doom and gloom right now, but there's a lot of stuff happening that we'll get into. So that really got us into creating an actual plan that would encourage mobility, prioritizing projects, and so safety was number one there. Context, that refers to land use context. The county is also doing a form-based code in the area, so that's what this body is all about: joining land use and transportation, which is great. And so this really helped kind of drive what we talked to the community about. I put lessons learned here. We We kind of went to a FAPA presentation. Florida American Planning Association had lessons learned, but I liked keeping some of these in here. And I think the first thing we learned is call it Lellman, not Leelman. So talking to the community and having community-based planning, we talked to the CRA, some of the other local groups, and that was really fantastic. They really provided a lot of input, and we had a lot of engagement with the public. Some really, really passionate discussions and people here that we'll talk about on 54th Avenue. So here's kind of just a listing. I won't go through all these of all the meetings that we've had. So this is kind of a word cloud that shows from some of our surveys what responses popped up more than any other. Street lights was fairly big there. Like I mentioned, sidewalks, and sidewalks are in several places there. So these were really good to hear these kind of responses. What we did with the overall Linking Leelman plan was to come up with different categories of projects. So that's what you'll see kind of at the top of that screen there. Then we had quick wins, short-term, mid-term, long-term projects. And really trying to focus on what are some projects we could do low cost to really get some things going here. Gain some traction. So this is a map of the sidewalks, and all those colors, the different colors are missing sidewalks or gaps. And a lot of times as planners, it's easy for us to draw a line on the map and say, we need to fill these gaps, but there's other projects that have to be done, such as stormwater projects. So we had a lot of coordination with the county staff and surrounding cities as well to try to identify projects. And we really focused on sidewalk gaps that would connect areas of activity, schools, the Leelman Exchange. The county's put so much investment in that area. And I'm proud to say some of the green, which are quick wins, are done. So the county's already doing some things. So that was our getting things done. It was really hard for us to keep this map up to date because it kept changing. So that was positive, but there's still a lot of work to do.
So the short-term and the mid-term projects, the yellow and the orange.
Yes, sir.
What was significantly different on those streets? What made it a short-term versus a long-term?
Short-term, you'll see there's schools, or there's a project already there. It was connecting something that we felt was pretty significant.
So it's more of a priority?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so short-term we felt within the next 5 to 6 years in that time frame.
Okay.
And I have to say, this is, as a planning geek, I love to go take pictures of people riding bikes and walking. So I'm sorry if you see me doing that out there someday in the county. But you don't have to try. You don't have to try in Leelman. It just within 5 minutes you see it happening. So, but we did look at activity too. We had this discussion in the previous agenda item. Crossings, intersections were key as well. So we identified those and had priorities. Transit, happy to say 49th Street's got the 52LX, so there's been some improvements there, but definitely some high transit ridership, and we highlighted transit stop improvements. Trail network, I'm really excited about this and what's happening overall in a countywide perspective, and talking to St. Pete, and can we connect 28th Street from north to south, and working with Pinellas Park as well on 62nd Avenue, and then the Joe's Creek. So it's hard sometimes. We talked about this at the beginning of the meeting. Things don't happen very quickly all the time, but I think we're going to really have a good network that we're going to start to cherish here. I missed it, but Neary Park was another one that, it's such a little gem that I didn't know about before I got in there. So it's just really interesting how we can kind of connect to that and the Pinellas Trail to the west. Here's a couple pictures we had, just kind of showing some renderings and visualizing what could be done. So the bottom right was a connection to Neary Park. A lot of times here's on the top left, a woman was riding her bike the wrong direction, lack of sidewalks, and that's 28th Street, where it's intermittent sidewalks, so people are forced to do that. So how can we make those improvements? So this is where I hit on the positive. I think there's a lot happening, a lot really being done right now. 54th Avenue, obviously, we had the concept plan. 62nd Avenue, there's been a corridor study there and some alternatives developed. DOT's working on 34th Street with a resurfacing. 46th Avenue is another one the county's got programmed. So there's things to come. Haynes is another one. So this is an example where it's tough. We had a lot of these discussions where we got in the community, and I understand the frustration. It was why hasn't this been done, or why hasn't that been done? And here's examples where I think we need to do more of this and just try to show some of the projects that have happened. So the top picture is the sidewalk connection to the Lellman Exchange. The bottom right is some of the improvements that have been done on Haynes. So 54th Avenue, that was a kind of where we really got in and honed in on this issue of, it's not a street that works for everyone right now, or for anyone, I would say. 3-4 foot sidewalks in some locations, a lot of people biking. So we talked about some higher level concepts of, you could leave it as is, lane reapportionment or widen it. I think we had some really good discussions, no consensus at this point, but we had valid points on all sides. So it was a really good kind of project to get in there and understand the triggers for everyone. And really this is one that's going to be moving forward with the next phase, which is the preliminary engineering report. And anything we felt dealing with 54th Avenue, 62nd Avenue, that correlates as well. So yeah, really the next steps, continued implementation of the overall Lincoln-Leoman plan. The preliminary engineering report for 54th Avenue will be starting this year. So I'm happy that there's going to be continued movement on that front, thanks to Ford Pinellas and the Complete Street Grants. So with that, I'll take any questions, and thanks for your time.
Questions? Yep. Thank you. Excellent presentation. Thank you so much. How much of these projects, or what portion, are funded, and from what sources? Do we have a document that shows that?
We do have in the overall Lincoln-Leoman plan a little bit of that. The map that I showed, there's some of it that's funded in the 5-year work program, such as 46th Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
So many of these are all kind of in the 5-year work program. So.
Do we have a document that shows all the timing, the funding, and the source for this entire program?
That's right, correct.
Okay.
Yes, we sure do.
And on the last, I know you said 54th is still going forward. I know we had opposition to the lane diet concept.
Yes.
Why is that still on the table?
There was opposition, but there was also some in favor of it. So I really, with the PER, it's let's explore those a little bit further. Let's get into a little bit more detail. There was a traffic analysis that was conducted, but yeah, again, it's to really kind of talk about what are some of the possibilities.
And what segment would that be applicable to?
Right.
So I know that I think we had a letter from the fire department.
Did, yeah.
So does this include that section of 54th?
It does. That section is east of the railroad, so it's on 54th Avenue, east of the railroad to 34th Street.
But the map that you have up, could you show, sorry, Commissioner Welch, could you show us?
Yeah, no problem.
From where to where?
Let's see here. So the portion we're talking about here is right at the railroad from here to here.
Okay.
So
And that's lowering the number of lanes?
Yes.
Correct. So right now it's a 4-lane undivided with 10, 11-foot travel lanes, and it's to look at, do you do 1 lane in each direction with a 2-way left turn lane in the median?
How many
That's
cars
an
does it
east-west
carry a day?
corridor to 275.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the options, and really the fire department opposition that was mentioned was really, and this is where the PER gets into much more detail as a concept plan. They were really having issues with kind of the landscaped medians. They felt like that could block a truck in a scenario. So the PER would get into much, and this is actually an image on the left-hand side. You can see this is 34th Street, and then the railroad cuts in here, and this is 49th Street. Let me know if you can't see this.
Okay.
So the lane reapportionment was to look at this. And these are high-level options. There's other options within these, but there's always a no build. We could leave it as is.
Well, no, not as is, because it definitely needs some pedestrian help. And
Yeah.
just reducing a lane, I just got a gut feeling that's not going to work. And we've heard from the community. I think the CRA group weighed in on that as well.
They did. There was both no consensus, like you said. There was some of the businesses liked the aesthetic. Could you create more of a walkable area and do something more quickly? The widening, it was felt, was going to take a little bit more time, obviously.
Was the landscaping problem with that was with the road diet option as
Correct.
opposed to the scenario 3, which also had it, but they have the multiple lanes.
Correct. The statement was really, and they have, as you know, there's a major station there, so if you had an accident here, that was
Block
there.
everything.
So that's where I think from a PER, it's going to get into much more detail, looking at specific properties, lay out the entire street. And I think this is where, you know, sometimes a picture says 1,000 words, but you have to be careful as well. This is really just showing one crossing. It wasn't going to be landscape medians across the board. So
Yeah.
I think having more of those open conversations and having that discussion, that's what the PER will flush out.
Well, even in that photo, how would a fire truck get past that middle part if the lane is blocked?
They'd have to go into the other lane.
Other lane, or they have mountable curbs.
No, I'm saying where there's a median and trees.
They'd have to go
Okay.
in the opposite
Way
direction
ahead,
to,
yeah,
You have to be an English driver.
yeah.
Become.
Or you'll see options where they do mountable curbs or lower shrub
Really?
kind of landscaping.
Yeah, that's
Mayor Bujalski, did you have, were you finished, Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mayor, did you have something?
I was just going to say, whatever course you choose to take, or your group to recommend in regards to the number of lanes, the nice thing about a landscape median is you can provide a pedestrian landing place in the middle, and it's protected a little bit. So, because it can be, especially if you've got the extra lanes, it's a long path for a crossing. So, you know, it gives a pedestrian a safe place to land. So I just throw that out there for your consideration.
Definitely. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you. Appreciate it,
Appreciate
Kimberly.
everyone.
All right. DOT has a update on State Road 693 South Pasadena Avenue corridor. Hi.
Good afternoon. My name's Brian Shore. I'm with the FDOT Planning Office. Today I'm going to give an update on a corridor study that we did in South Pasadena on State Road 699, Pasadena Avenue. Excuse me. So the limits of this were from Shore Drive, Matthews Drive, down to the hospital on the south side of the corridor, up to 66th Street. It's within the city of South Pasadena and the city of St. Petersburg limits. Is about 1.7 miles long. For the corridor studies, we reached out to the public, tried to get a lot of information from the local residents and agencies that are involved, the stakeholders. We created websites, wiki maps where people can leave comments and that. So we got a lot of feedback along the corridor. We divided the corridor into 3 sections to help plan for future construction and design projects out here also. So I'll be going through all those 3 sections there. A lot of the information we got back, safety was a big issue. A lot of accidents are happening out there. There's it's an older community of older people, so there are a lot of people walking through there and biking. So safety was a big issue. Congestion, it is a main thoroughfare to the beaches down through there. So a lot of vehicles are traveling through the corridor. Intersection improvements that they had suggested, and we detailed some information on that. And the bus and bike peds and pedestrians out there. So you see here the 3 different segments we had. The crash rates are quite high through here. So for each section, we tried to develop short-term, mid-term, long-term improvements that we could do out there also. The big hot spot is closer to 66th Street, right there at Central Avenue. So I have a lot more information coming up for that one. But you can see here the crash rates are quite high compared to statewide average. And again, for the northern section, segment 3, this is starting at Central Avenue. There's a lot of permissive left turn crashes where the people are going through and they're not actually getting a signal for left, they're just trying to go on a green. So a lot of crashes are happening there. Just up at Pinellas Way North, there's a cut through at the median to make a left into Pinellas Way heading west. Because of the southbound right turn lane, the cars are backing up to go through, but that southbound right turn lane is open, so a lot of cars are flying through, and people making the left turn Pinellas Way, they're getting hit. So it's creating an issue there. And then at First Avenue North, people are making a lot of lefts out there onto 693, but they don't really fit within the median, so there's crashes happening there because they're sticking out into the travel way. Right at 66th Street, a lot of crashes are happening there because the speed at they're entering that turn there is quite sharp. You can see also there's no pedestrian crosswalks or anything. And we noted out that right turn lane to head back south on 66th, really underutilized. So we're going to take that into account when we make some recommendations out here.
Hey, Brian?
Yes.
On the couple pages back on page 5, you had a crash rate number, and then you had an adjusted rate. What is the difference? How does that morph? Because it's considerably different.
Yeah.
So which one should we be looking at?
Well, the crash rate is the numbers that we pull from the reports that we have. I think the adjusted rate was, we took into account some of the other information that we pulled from the long forms of there to really justify what types of crashes were happening out there and that. Right now, I'm really drawing a blank what the consultant told me on what he did with that. But it's just, overall, if you look at the crash rates and the DRT average, you can see there's quite a big difference there too. So I think some of them were different periods of time, especially on the segment 3, where it's like 17.8%. That there's some timing in the reports that we had through the 5-year range that we looked at. And again, at 66th Street, you can see there was 55 total crashes, 30 with injuries. 26 of those were their roadway departures where they're coming in and going too fast at that curve. So now I'm going to go into some of the concepts that we developed. And through the segments, segment 2 really didn't have a lot of things that we could do that were big, like this one and segment 3. So I'll go through segment 3 first, and we'll come back through the other ones. But right there at Central Avenue, where you said we had those permissive left turns crashes and those crossings there at the median onto Pinellas Way, we developed this concept here to make the left turns protected at Central Avenue. Close the median down into Pinellas Way and have them come up, do U-turn. And it gave us a larger, wider median area at First Avenue to make a 2-stage crossing and the U-turns where they aren't going to be sticking out in the roadway there too. So we tried to address all 3 of the incidents that we're having there by this concept here. We're also designed the chicane to help lower the speed coming in as you're heading north on this to 66th Street at that curve there. And then at 66th Street, we made some adjustments to the geometry. We made another chicane heading southbound to get them to slow down. We flattened the geometry out so we could slow the speed down through the curve, which actually gave us a buffer near that residential area. And then that right turn lane that I was pointing out that was underutilized, we take that out and just make a split left or through, or right and through lane there through the intersection.
Question, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman?
Yeah.
What does the purple or blue crosshatch symbolize?
That's taking out some of the right-of-way, the landscape and stuff that was in the median. They're cutting into that area there.
Okay, so you're removing.
Right.
Okay.
So like the left turn lane, we were extending it back a little bit further than what was there and then changing some of the striping through there.
Okay.
What was the term you gave? I'm assuming flashing yellow lights that we're seeing more of. What is that? What is that
The
called?
RRFBs?
No. I'm talking about at the lights where you have the.
Oh,
it switches.
the flashing yellow for turns, yeah.
Yeah.
That's just not necessarily what we're talking about in this case.
Oh, I understand.
I mean,
I thought you'd used a term a minute ago referencing those yellow.
He was talking about protected left turns
Protected
versus
or
permitted
permissive.
left turns.
Gotcha, okay.
So with protected, it's a turn signal. With permitted, you can turn under the yellow, or you've got the green ball, and you can make that left turn. It's permissive. But then you've got to judge the distance between the oncoming traffic.
It's just that's what we saw from the crashes there being permissive now that they were not judging quite correctly, like you say, and a lot more accidents there. Where if they're protected, where they had the left turn arrow, they're the only movement that's happening at that intersection.
Wow, because that flashing yellow it's a big help.
Another
I think.
thing, yeah, that's newer that we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're not seeing any issues with that? Negative? Yes.
Didn't have it here, but yeah,
We are.
there's.
I'm saying, yes, we are.
People are used to it, yeah.
Accidents?
That's another topic for another day.
Okay. Never mind.
Dual-edged sword.
Every time I get to one of those red light arrows, I'm thinking, where's the yellow one? You know, because you just sit there for a whole 3 minutes. So
Right.
it seems pretty convenient, but
Right.
oh well.
But just going back in, like I said, we were able to fix some issues here with the
Safety
speeds
versus
entering the
convenience.
intersection, and we added the pedestrian crosswalks, which weren't there at the present time. Along with the vehicle improvements we made, a lot of, like I said, pedestrians out there that it's an older age community that's out there. They're walking to the shops and stuff. So we're trying to take care of them too. The crossings we mapped out. Some don't have all 4 legs of the intersection hatched as a sidewalk crosswalk. And then near between Park and up there at First Avenue South, there isn't a crosswalk for about a half mile, so we suggested putting some in there. Those were to help increase some visibility, and we make some other adjustments too along with that. But the main point was to get these crosswalks in. And then at the south end there, there's excessive crossing time, so I got something with that. I thought I took these out. Okay. And bike users that are out there, a lot of bike users. There's the trail to the north. They can go down to the south through the corridor also. Currently, there's no bike lanes along the corridor, so they're riding on the sidewalks and sharing space with the pedestrians also. So we took a look at that and seeing what we could do in the corridor to help all these situations and map something out. If we could go in now and buy our typical sections and design criteria, this is what we would propose to be done out there. 10-foot lanes with 11-foot outside lanes, keeping the 3 lanes each direction. We'd have a 7-foot buffered bike lane, and then we'd have a 6-foot sidewalk. Currently, there's only 100 foot of right-of-way, and to do this typical section would require 15.5 feet of additional right-of-way, which is costly out there. There isn't enough right-of-way right now. Everybody's up against the sidewalks. So we looked at what we could do within the existing right-of-way and address some of the issues that we're having. Here, we weren't able to fit the bike lanes in the roadway, but we provided additional wider 10-foot sidewalks on each side that would allow the bicyclists and pedestrians to be in there also. 11-foot lanes we needed for the BRT, which I'll mention a little bit later too. So this was something that we come up to address the issues. And like I said, BRT is planning a corridor route to go down that corridor, starting at Central Avenue and heading south through there. We worked with them as we were doing the study because they were also starting at the same time. We've tried to accommodate the future plans that the PSTA is going to do, allow them to have the right-of-way, enough roadway for the buses, for the width, and any other features that they would need. We were coordinating with them. And back to the bikes, because we couldn't fit a dedicated bike lane, and the BRT is coming in to utilize the outside lane, and the speed's low enough, we suggested the use of sharrows, which currently in the PSTA plans, they're showing the sharrows to be utilized out there for the bikes. And this will help. The routes for the headway for the buses were only like 10 minutes, I think, so there weren't that many out there. On the south end, this is segment 1. Like I said, segment 2 didn't really have anything besides some minor crosswalks and signal work. Segment 1 is had a lot of issues with the pedestrian crossings near the hospital. As you see, the bridges are split. There's quite a long distance crossing the intersection where the signalized symbol is. it took almost 3 minutes to get across there at times. So it's very inefficient for the vehicles also. And the sharp curve and everything for the buses, not the buses, I'm sorry, the bridge. And there's no pedestrian crosswalk on the south end of the bridge near Sun Island Boulevard, I think it is, Sun Island Drive. So we developed a concept to address that in the future. And when it comes time to replace those bridges, which are currently 50, 60 years old, we developed this concept which would address getting the intersection a lot smaller to reduce the time for crossing. PSTA is putting a sidewalk or a crosswalk at the bus stops at Sun Island Drive, and this concept would allow some other utilization of free space for economic development and cross trails along the waterway there from the hospital to the other side of the roadway. And you can see the PSTA's BRT route is planning on going through here too. So. That's all I really have. Just a quick update. We're in the process. We have completed the study. We're putting the documents together, and then we'll be submitting those to Ford Pinellas to help review that and develop projects from this.
Question
Yes.
for you. On, I think it was page 14, there's a posted speed limit versus a design speed. And I'm assuming every road has a design speed to it, but it can be adjusted to a posted speed limit. So I was thinking, as not necessarily for here, but as it relates to Drew Street and the request that it's going to take several years to get it, quote, fixed to whatever that ends up being. And wanting to look at speed reductions in the interim, what kind of variables are you looking at with this posted speed? Is it lane width, closeness to sidewalks, traffic count? What are all the variables that would justify us potentially lowering that speed in that Drew Street corridor, at least in some specific areas? Just a kind of a general question.
Well, in general, what I also do is part of my job is I do the context classification for roadways for the DOT. And there we're taking a look at the land uses that are happening along the corridors. And then we have design criteria that are based on that classification of roadways. So large residential corridors, we take a look at that and we try to fit the corridor to what is happening out there. So if there's a lot of pedestrian activities, we want to make sure we feature the sidewalks and bike lanes through there. Whereas we go into some really rural areas, we're not going to have the bike lanes and sidewalks needed as much. So we'll take that criteria and develop design speed based on other factors like the crashes that are happening out there and other traffic conditions that are happening, and try to mold a roadway that's going to help be safer for the public, drivers and pedestrians, bicyclists, and meet all the other needs that are happening out there too. So I've done this on Bush Boulevard, and we're making a lot of changes out there.
With Drew Street, you have no lane width. The sidewalk is interrupted countless times by light posts and ending sidewalks just abruptly. It's really bad for, you wouldn't want to be walking along there. They have sidewalks partially, then you have to kind of get out into the road. If there's a big mirror on the side, it knocks you off the sidewalk. I was just wondering how we can look at this area in here, I don't mean today, but just over the next few months to kind of see what can we justify slowing it down there. I don't even know what the speed is, like from the top of the hill as you go down by the golf course.
40.
It's 40?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like it's
So
40.
to me, if you walk that area, which I'm sure some have, I did, and it's just too fast.
Right.
And so anyway, just food for thought, and maybe we could look at that.
Well, yeah, and Drew's on my list of things. So, yeah.
I think this is really notable here, though, Brian and board members, if I could draw your attention, it's design speed and posted speed. So we're really talking about what's the target speed of the road that we want vehicles to travel. And historically, we designed our roads for a faster speed, and then we posted a lower speed. And there were probably good reasons for doing that, but that does lead to speeding. And so this is, we've got 10-foot travel lanes out there, except for the outside lane. DOT is really, I think, taking into the context of the community in putting this design, and we really applaud you for that. We do have a lot of slower moving people walking out there, and I think this will help rein in some of the traffic on Pasadena Avenue. And we look to this as a pretty good template for other corridors that we'll examine through this. So it's a new dawn, a new day for our Department of Transportation, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Yes, Commissioner Welch.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's exciting. What's the estimated timing until, ultimate construction of this project?
There wasn't a follow-on project from the study. During the study, there was a resurfacing that went up to Park Street. And currently, this week, we're scoping another design project that's going from Park up to Tyrone. So features that have come out of the study that we can get done in this new resurfacing are going to be added into it. But they won't necessarily be the bigger part like at 66th Street where I highlighted there, a lot of the lane changes and curb alignments. That won't happen until we can finalize the real design criteria and then get a separate project for that one. So it could be, 5 years or longer.
Okay. I saw Witt stepped out. Does this align with the BRT project?
Yes, they come in at 693 LA Central.
In terms of
and head
timing.
south. Oh. Well, we were just discussing that yesterday. So the BRT's moving along, and we've been coordinating with them because of the certain criteria they're going to put down for the red markings on the roadway and that. The resurfacing, we're going to adjust and talk with them about the timing of that. So we don't want them to put the red down and we resurface it out. So that's in the works right now. We just had a discussion about that yesterday.
And the plan is for the 10-foot sidewalks on both sides of Pasadena?
That's the idea. There's no project being developed to do this yet. It may take a little bit more planning and make sure we can get it done with the BRT bus stops coming in also. So,
okay. And I would like to get more information, I guess, since I'm going back to PSTA, I can ask some questions then, Mr. Chairman. With the sharrows, I've always had a concern about sharrows and their practical use. Unless you're in a group of bikes, I wouldn't be out there by myself in a sharrow. And I've shared that with Witt many times. So had that always been the idea that we use the bat lanes for bikes as well?
It's an option that is there and something that we do use the sharrows for, since the speed limit's at 35. And the amount of traffic expected, because now it's only going to be buses and right turns into businesses intersections, so the amount of vehicles in there is going to be greatly reduced. I hope that the bicyclists will have a better chance of having that a little more open for them than they currently do.
Well, if I'm riding it, I'm on the 10-foot sidewalk, just because drivers are not paying attention.
Right.
So, but thank you for the info.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And since Witt's favorite sport is baseball, he's going to be pinch hitting today, doing the evolution of the regional partnerships. So,
Yeah, as we call this up, unfortunately, Chelsea Favreau, our staff, went home ill. She wasn't feeling well today, so she was going to do this for me, but I'm happy to do it. This has kind of been my baby for a long time. I've been working with our regional partners as a consultant and now as your director, going on 25 years, long time, 30 years maybe. And it's evolved. So what I want to talk to you, this is the one action item you have here under your presentations. But I just want to talk a little bit about our regional transportation partnerships, because we don't talk about it a lot here unless we have an item to approve. And not everybody knows that we are pretty engaged in a lot of different ways with our partners across the Bay and to the north and throughout the Tampa Bay region. We are a fast-growing region, and the reality is that people who are shipping goods and freight and driving from Orlando to our beaches or wherever, they're not really thinking about county lines. They're not thinking about jurisdictional boundaries, and so we do need to look regionally at our transportation network. And you can see the population projections. 1 million more people in the Tampa Bay area projected by 2045. That's significantly larger in other counties than in our county. We're still expected to add about 100,000 more people. But then you can see to our north, about 300,000, Hillsborough, about 700,000, And we're not creating any more beach. We're not creating any more land for all those great destinations here in Pinellas County. We do also need to have a clear message on regional transportation needs and priorities, and we saw that with the West Shore Interchange, where we all came together to advance that project and get funding through the state. And that's kind of how the game is played, particularly when we're dealing with our interstate and regional network, is we're competing against other regions in Florida for funding, so we have to speak as a region. We also make a lot of assumptions in our transportation planning, and we want to make sure those assumptions are valid and good, whether it's tourist traffic and tourist counts, or whether it's development or people living in the coastal high hazard area. So we work with Hillsborough, with Pasco, with our other partners to make sure that we're aligning our data and information so that we can have good context for you all to make decisions. And then we do have a conflict resolution process as well. So there are times when we may disagree on a regionally significant improvement, whether it's in Hillsborough or in Pinellas or in Pasco, and we need to have a mechanism for resolving that. And currently, we have that with the Chairs Coordinating Committee, which is our 7 or 8 county agency, but our 3 county TMA for Pasco, Hillsborough, and Pinellas, we don't really have those same mechanisms, so we're looking to change that. Some of the regionally significant transportation issues we've been dealing with and continue to deal with. Every year we bring to you a major priority project list that we endorse, and then we send that on to the state to request funding, and we do need to come together in consensus around that. We have a program called the Transportation Regional Incentive Program, or TRIP. That is a mechanism that was created probably a decade or 2 ago that provides a 50-50 funding source, 50 state funds, 50 local match to address congestion hotspots around the region. In order to tap into that money, you have to have a regional partnership like the Chairs Coordinating Committee, and those are created around the state for that purpose. We look at growth, population and employment changes together, resilience. We just completed a resilience study with Hillsborough and Pasco, identifying our most vulnerable roadways and priorities for remediating those. In years past, we've completed passenger rail corridor feasibility studies. I suspect we'll see some renewal of that in the next several years, and intermodal facilities such as the one for the Gateway area that we've been talking about as well. This has been going on formally since 1993. The Chairs Coordinating Committee started with lunch between the Hillsborough MPO and Pinellas MPO chairs, and it evolved into changing state statutes in '93 to formalize that relationship. And Sarasota Manatee was added a few years later, and then Citrus, Hernando have been added since then. In 2014, we formed the Transportation Management Area Leadership Group for the urbanized area that's Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, and includes Pasco as well. And that was more of just an ad hoc focus on our Tri-County area. And in 2016, this is where it gets kind of interesting, the Chairs Coordinating Committee moved under the Tampa Bay Area Regional Transportation Authority, or TBARTA at the time. It retained its own governing board, which I'll get into in a minute, but the staff directors of all the MPOs felt like, well, TBARTA was looking for some things to do. This was a big staff commitment, and they were willing to take it on, so we agreed to pay some money to TBARTA so that they would manage the Chairs Coordinating Committee process for us. And I think that worked out pretty well. But then a couple of years later, the legislature came along and reformulated TBARTA into a transit agency and shrunk their footprint from the same, 7 counties, not 8, because Polk was never included, down to 5. So Sarasota's not in, and Citrus is not in. So with those changes, we felt it was just important to kind of refine the Chairs Coordinating Committee structure as an MPO responsibility and let TBARTA do its regional transit planning as we think they ought to, and let the MPOs be responsible for the MPO work products. So the way the CCC is configured is we have a governing board that is comprised of the MPO chairs or their designee. They meet twice a year currently. We used to meet 4 times a year, and the staff directors used to meet every 2 weeks. The staff directors still meet pretty frequently, but it's more like once a month, and we meet by conference call. The partner entities, such as the Department of Transportation, the Regional Planning Councils, they are serve in a non-voting capacity. The MPOs rotate staffing responsibilities on generally a quarterly basis, and the TMA leadership group is now being moved into a subcommittee of the Chair's Coordinating Committee. So it's a geographic subcomponent, and it makes sense that it would be a policy subcomponent. These are the members of the Chair's Coordinating Committee. So you can see we have 6 MPOs, we have 8 counties, we have 2 DOT districts, we have 3 regional planning councils, the Turnpike Enterprise, and TBARTA continues to be a part of that process. So there are a lot of moving parts. It's not just that we have a lot of MPOs, we have a lot of agencies and entities dealing with transportation and planning and hurricane evacuation and whatnot. Some of the CCC responsibilities are enumerated in state statute. We have to put together a coordinated project selection process, a regional congestion management process as well. We do coordinated air quality planning. We do a lot less than when we were a non-attainment area for air quality. Now we're in attainment, but that could change if the rules change or if we continue to spew emissions. Our regional conflict resolution process is in place. We probably need to take a renewed look at that, but we do have a mechanism for resolving interjurisdictional conflicts, and we do take on a coordinated public involvement effort. Some of the work products, and the map you see is one of those work products. We define the regionally significant roadway network, and you may think that that's not a big deal, but that's really kind of hard to do. One of the reasons is because there's funding attached to what's called a regionally significant road. So everybody wants every road to be a regionally significant road just to keep those options open. But if everything's regional, nothing's regional. So it's generally your interstates and your principal arterials for the most part. We put together priorities for our Transportation Regional Incentive Program projects. We put together a regional component of the Long Range Transportation Plan, and we'll be doing that again in the spring of this year. And what's interesting is our MPOs are on different cycles for their long-range plans. So the District 7 MPOs adopted theirs this past December. The District 1 MPOs are a year behind us. So they'll be adopting their long-range plans, and then we'll continue to align those as we work together. We have a regional multi-use trails plan. We have a regional congestion management performance report. And you can see these other things that I've talked about. So the CCC has done a lot of good work over the years in keeping everybody on the same page. So what's in your packet is a interlocal agreement and a set of operating procedures that have been amended to reestablish the Chair's Coordinating Committee as being fully staffed and supported by the MPOs. Now, there is a memo from TBARTA in your packet that their legal counsel and staff drafted with my assistance, which basically covers TBARTA because they are still in statutes as being responsible for coordinating and the administrative functions of the Chair's Coordinating Committee. So we felt that we needed to at least keep that statutory responsibility there. So what TBARTA will be doing is hosting the physical in-person meetings. So they have a convenient central location, and we'll be using their website to post notices of our meeting and share documents. So that's, that helps, and I think it still meets the legislative intent. What we are doing is integrating the TMA leadership group into that structure, and significantly, part of the new procedures is to establish a chair and a vice chair of the TMA leadership group for the calendar year. We'll be voting on the chair and the vice chair at our next meeting in March, and then that will go presumably through the end of the legislative session in 2021. And that's significant because what I've heard consistently from our legislative delegation and from others is who's the one point person who can speak for the region in terms of priorities. And we don't have that right now. So it would be great whether it's Commissioner Eggers or whether it's Commissioner Kemp or whether it's Commissioner Starkey from Pasco County to have one point person that is the chair of the TMA leadership group. And we also retained our voting responsibilities based on who shows up and not weighted by population and not one vote per MPO. And I think that's also significant because we were wrestling with Hillsborough wanting it to be weighted by population and Pasco wanting it to be one vote per MPO, so we're all equal. Well, this is, if we show up with 3 and Hillsborough has 2 and Pasco has 1, we've got the majority and that's how the vote's gonna go. And that's what staff wanted. So we're good with that. unless there's objections, and maybe I've raised a red flag I shouldn't have, but so far so good on that.
That means that we've got to always be there.
We've got to be there, that's right. It's an incentive. Well, it's an incentive not for us, because we generally do show up in force. It's maybe the other counties. So we're asking you to approve these changes to the interlocal agreement and to the operating procedures. My understanding is Hillsborough, Pasco, and the other MPOs in the region are also doing that either in February, in January or February. And I'll open it up to any questions that you have. I think that's the last slide. Yep.
Any questions for Whit?
Just a request, unless I'm looking in the wrong place. I was looking for the strike-through version of the interlocal. I don't see a strike-through.
I don't think we included the strike-through version in this
It's a label
packet.
strike-through, but it's not
Yeah.
actually. Can you email that to us?
We'll make sure you get
Just-
that.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry for that oversight.
That's all right.
Move approval.
Okay.
Second.
Motion for approval.
Yeah. Oh, Jordan, I'm sorry.
Ken was the second. Any other comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And Executive Director Spotlight Update, Whit, as you come up here.
Just stay down there.
Yeah, you could.
Costume change.
Right.
All right, Director's report. What am I talking about? Okay, spotlight update.
Spotlight.
Okay, so at your next meeting in February, we're going to have a presentation on the US 19 corridor. The department has been looking at some innovative intersection concepts north of 580. We know we want to build the interchanges at Republic Drive and Curlew and at Tampa Road, and we're inconsistent. We are consistent on that. DOT is working with us very well to look at some other options that would provide the same benefit as the overpasses, maybe with less community impact. We'll be getting that presentation in February, not for action, but just to kind of keep everybody on the same page and understanding what those alternatives are. So look for that as well. We also had for US 19 an initial kickoff meeting and then a pretty in-depth series of stakeholder interviews for the frontage road retrofit. The consultant came into our office and hosted all-day meetings with county, city, and other key stakeholders to come in and provide input and guidance on safety improvements for the frontage road. So those two efforts are moving along really nicely, and we're happy with the progress being made there. We will also bring back to you in coming months, when I'm not sure when we're ready, but further south on US 19, the Gandy interchange, that's being redesigned and being, I think the footprint's being shrunk from what you've seen previously. And for 34th Street South, we are going through the formal lane elimination process with FDOT for the potential for BAT lanes on that section, the business access and transit lanes. And I'm not sure, Al, when we'll be ready for that, but that'll be sometime in 2020 where we'll bring that back to the board. The main item I want to talk about under Spotlight, though, is for the waterborne transportation item for enhancing beach community access, one of our initiatives. It's become pretty obvious that there's a lot of support for waterborne transportation, but the way we go about doing it has been really ad hoc. It has lacked a lot of oversight and a lot of formality. We don't have any criteria, for instance, that we can rely on for what to fund and what not to fund. Although we do have a call for projects every year, and our transportation alternatives could be used for that source. We're not limited. What I think we need to do is, and this I think came from Mayor Bajowski, is to form a subcommittee that can really dive into the waterborne transportation issue in a little bit more depth. We might start by just presenting you all back the 2003 Waterborne Feasibility Study report that the MPO led. And it's been 17 years since that study. And basically, back in 2003, we said, we like this, but the private sector needs to take the lead. Well, that's kind of what's been happening. But the private sector needs help. And they're coming to us telling us they need help. And that's what's happened with the Cross Bay Ferry. So how do we sustain that funding model? How do we provide governance and oversight that's appropriate for it? How do we ensure that it can be expanded? And what are the expectations of local governments if we do so? So with your permission, I'd like to seek some volunteers for maybe 3 to 4 subcommittee meetings to deal with this topic, to bring some recommendations back for consideration by the board later in the year.
Well, you obviously know the three of us want to be a part of that, okay?
So I'm seeing, Councilmember Albritton, you're the only one right now that has an agreement with the Clearwater Ferry, I guess Dunedin.
We have one too,
as
but
well.
we don't put any.
We're not funding it, okay. And then we have the Cross Bay Ferry, so I'd like to see if we could get somebody from the city of St. Petersburg as well.
I would volunteer.
Okay.
So now you got 5.
Everybody good with that?
Yep.
4. Yeah, that's
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
cookie.
Mayor Kennedy's expressed some interest as well. And so what I'm looking for is a motion and action from the board supporting the subcommittee and the members that have been identified.
I'll make the motion for the subcommittee.
Second.
Well, there you go.
Okay. That'd be quick on the draw.
It's all good.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Great. And last item on Spotlight is the Gateway Master Plan. We received today a draft report that reflects the edits that we've previously given to the consultant, so it's kind of a second draft. We will be sharing that in the next week or two with all the local governments that have been involved in the Gateway Master Plan and the FDOT. And probably in May, I want to say, we will be bringing back a memorandum of agreement to endorse principles in the Gateway Master Plan, and we're starting to work with the cities to set up time on their agendas in about the May timeframe. It could be May or June, to get the local governments to adopt the memorandum of agreement with those guiding principles. And then Christina Mendoza of our staff has been tapped to be the bird dog and the shepherd and the, holding people's feet to the fire to implement the Gateway Master Plan over time. Any questions on that?
Not specific to any of these. It's a follow-up from conversations that we had a few meetings back, I think during our legislative committee meeting. And there was some conversation about setting up a task force regarding scooters and kind of some best practices, suggestions countywide as municipalities are implementing their own ordinances. So have we thought any more about that?
It's a great suggestion, and yes, we have. Commissioner Eggers has mentioned it in regard to the Pinellas Trail, for instance. The legislation that passed a year ago gave cities and local governments discretion at setting some regulations. You all have got your program in place. Clearwater has passed some rules that I'm not really super familiar with.
It went back to the drawing board, but we'll be doing that.
You will be doing that. Okay, so I know that's in progress. So yeah, I mean, I think we need to kind of bring everybody together and see what can be applied countywide. I think there's a lot of frustration sometimes that we just kind of do piecemeal things, and so that's an example where I'm willing to look at that. I think it's a matter of staff timing and capacity, so it might be maybe towards the summer or so, but yeah, I'm open to that.
Okay, thank you.
I take it these are motorized, so are they going to be allowed on sidewalks, or will they have to be traversing the road?
On the municipality.
It depends on the municipality. That's kind of the beauty of the
That's the
legislation. They are, e-scooters, for instance, are treated, they're electric, they have a motor, they're treated as bicycles in the statute. It's up to the cities if they want to restrict them like they do bicycles from riding on the sidewalks. Not every city does that, some do. And some do it just for like the downtown area, for instance. To Commissioner Welch's point, you don't want to restrict bicycles from the sidewalk on 22nd Avenue South or 54th Avenue North or anything like that.
Exactly.
So you got to pick your spots. But in a busy downtown where there's a lot of people walking, I know downtown Orlando, downtown St. Petersburg, they do ban riding cycles on sidewalks.
It'd be great to get them off the trail.
Mostly for
Yeah, so what we've done with the Pinellas Trail is we did have a task force in 2016, a subcommittee. They looked at that issue, and we have allowed e-scooters and e-bikes to be on the Pinellas Trail as long as they stay below the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. So it becomes an enforcement issue. And as you know from social media, enforcement is kind of hard on that. So, yeah, we would be happy to look at that. And I think we also need to do a better job of communicating what's allowed on the trail and what's not allowed on the trail.
The reason why I was asking, I've noticed a lot of metropolitan areas, just as an example, Tallahassee has the I want to call them the adult razors. You know, you put your feet on there and hold on, and off you go. Where scooters, I'm thinking of the old-fashioned scooter that you sit on, and they're parked on the sidewalk, and I've seen people riding them on the sidewalk. And if you have a group of people that you're tourists, a group of people walking and everything, then that's the reason why it's. Whit and I've talked, when it comes to Pinellas Trail, I feel like from one end of the county to the other, all the crosswalks should look the same so that it doesn't matter where you're driving or where you're riding, the rules, and the scooter thing should kind of go along those same lines, where, if somebody rents it in Treasure Island and drives all the way to Clearwater with it, it needs to be the same rules. So.
That's kind of why I brought it up, because that's the concern is that, the average tourist or sometimes even resident doesn't understand that they've crossed over from St. Pete into Pinellas Park. And so, kind of how we start to get consistency with these new technologies, I think is important.
I think that's right. And consistency of trail intersection treatments is something that Mayor's brought up, and we're going to look at that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, this is where we asked for home rule, and we got it, and so now we have to take care of it.
Now we have to deal with it.
Yeah, and I think with, like you said, 24 cities in the unincorporated area, we better figure it out. The cat's out of the bag, but
So can I ask one other question related to that? And I think it's a great conversation. So, got an email from Gina Driscoll about a sign that we had on there about when the trail is open, and that sign isn't applicable anymore because we lit certain portions of the trail in St. Pete.
Yeah, we have the same
North County.
thing.
So in terms of lighting the trail, I mean, it's really becoming this kind of all-encompassing transportation and amenity. I don't know if we ever really thought it would get to that point. So in addition to the scooters, which I didn't know we actually allowed until you said that.
Right.
We do allow scooters and electric bikes now.
Yeah.
And so lighting, how are we approaching that if folks are increasingly asking to light the trail and use it at night?
Lighting is a case-by-case basis based on a request from a city to do that. My understanding is it's a request of the county, but the city has to come up with the funding and do all those mechanisms. And then they'll make accommodations for keeping the trail open for that period of time. But yeah, maybe that's
including
something.
The law enforcement piece of it?
I'm not sure what the responsibility is of the local government for law enforcement. I don't
We
think.
don't do law enforcement. Well, we have the sheriff anyway, so,
Yeah.
but no.
And the rangers aren't going to be out there,
They don't go out at night.
Right.
So
But it's
there's no
just
law.
on the lighted area.
It's just in a
doesn't-
lighted
it's not
area, but
supposed
we
to-
don't.
But if you're out on the trail
talking about the
early,
rental ones, or
there are a lot of folks going
One
to
on the
work. You
trail.
can tell they're going to work
Rated
at 4 or
being on the
5 in the
trail after
morning,
dark.
and
And
not supposed to be on the trail,
downtown Dunedin,
but they are.
It's there,
Yeah.
There's an
And it's a
extended
safer
area
way to
that's
go
lighted.
than-
It's not just right around the intersection, it goes quite a distance. I think it goes all the way to Skinner.
And now there's the Warehouse Arts District that's got
Yeah.
lighting that's been approved.
Yeah. But
So-
there's very little enforcement done by the county on the trail.
Is that lighting?
I'd like you to fight for that.
It was funny. I was going on the trail. What's that?
We've got those security markers that tell you where you are. You can just give them the code.
Yeah.
Every few.
I was going down the trail through Dunedin, and there was 3 sheriff's deputies in the grass part of the trail.
There were?
Right back, yeah. And I was like, I don't know if there was a
They
problem.
just standing there?
They were parked, and they were looking up and down the trail. Now, I don't know if there may have been some kind of burglary or something.
Were they close to Michigan?
It was south of Hammock Park.
Yeah, 'cause Hammock-
Palm Boulevard.
Hammock area, that would be
Probably
there'd be a reason.
Okay, other than trail. I got you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, well, point well taken, and we'll look at that. I do want to cover a couple of other items. The Kennedy report on transit funding is here because of Jim Kennedy. I don't really have anything new to say, but transportation funding is a big issue for us this year. It's going to be a big issue through 2020 for the commission and for everybody. We are continuing to refine the program. We have a little timeline of events leading up to April. And then we'll see what the will of the Board of County Commissioners is for funding. But I think it's pretty clear from our conversations about resilience and emissions and how Pinellas County needs to grow, that transit funding in particular is a challenge for us, and we need to figure out a way around that. And there's a never-ending need, it seems like, to deal with congestion, and you've heard the safety statistics. So those are still the focus areas. The conversations are still happening. I continue to get requests to speak and talk to folks about transportation funding. So stay tuned, I guess, is the best news on that. The Legislative Committee met this morning at 11, and the main topic of discussion was Pinellas County Day, which is coming up on January 15th, and I'll be joining a few of the county commissioners and staff. We have some meetings that we're going to try and have with the legislative delegation, and we've got a handout that we're bringing to them that the committee reviewed. And we're trying to keep things simple, so we're focusing on three main topics for 2020, which is transportation, funding and safety, housing, and resilience. And in those buckets, you can kind of drive a truck through them. There's a lot of things we can talk about, but things like eliminating some of our regional bottlenecks, investing in transit, jobs access, job training, affordable housing, and then ensuring that we're hardening our infrastructure. So some key messages there for the legislature, and looking forward to that. Bills to note, it's still early. The session begins on Tuesday, I think, next week. And there are some bills that have been heard by committee. There's a school bus safety bill, which increases some of the fines for violating school bus safety. As bills get a little traction and we either like or don't like what we see in there, we'll refer to the priorities that you adopted in October, and then we will update you on our activities or seek input from the board as necessary. But during session, things move really fast, and we may not be able to come to you in order to take a position. So if that's the case, I'd like to have everybody's agreement that I'll work with the chair, who's also chair of our legislative committee, works out well, and any input or guidance that we need, we can do that. And if we need to come back to the board at a certain time to reaffirm that, we will.
Sounds good.
Last thing I want to mention, and I think we can be done quickly, is our work session scheduled for January 24th. I really want to encourage everybody to be there. We'll try to keep it under 3 hours. But it is our annual opportunity to do a little bit deeper dive into some of the issues that we are dealing with at a staff level, that we need some input and feedback from you, in particular things like, what do you want us to do over the next 2 years? So this is an opportunity as we develop our unified work program that we have to have adopted by you in the spring, is to get your input. So for instance, we went to Indianapolis a couple of years ago on a peer exchange. Do you want to do that again? Do we want to bring in speakers, nationally recognized speakers, and pay them to come and talk to us about their experiences in other parts of the country? We'd like to get some advice from you on that. Do we want to continue the emphasis areas of beach access, gateway, US 19? Those are things you all have decided at previous work sessions. So please join us. We want to lay out our strategy for corridor planning and the countywide housing strategy, and get you up to speed on those things. And that'll be a basis for going forward for the next 2 years.
Looking forward to that.
That's at PSTA, 9 a.m. on the 24th.
Thank you.
And the public's invited to attend.
Any questions for Whit on any of that?
I have something else, but
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I
Mayor.
was just going to say, in regards to the trail, I've had a lot of feedback, at least in Dunedin. I don't know about anywhere else. We recently did the painting, of the bike side versus the pedestrian side on the trail. But that's just been in the downtown proper, and from Skinner North and Scotland South, at least in the Dunedin 10 square miles. It's still missing, and I'm getting a lot of complaints about groups of people being in bike areas. So I just don't think it's been consistent, and so I don't know what a schedule is for any of that. And again, I have not gone out there and looked at it myself. I'm just strictly telling you what
You're
I
talking about with people walking in the bike areas? even though they're really, it's a trail for everybody to use.
Right, but
Yeah.
there's
I
painting
know.
markings on the trail, and I don't think they're consistent.
That may be true. I've heard a little bit about that, but I don't want to misspeak and mischaracterize that conversation. So let me get with our staff and with the county staff, and we'll bring back an update at the next meeting.
Okay, great, thanks.
Can I ask a follow-up on that?
Yes.
Was that a specific request of Dunedin?
It
And
was
is
from
it
Dunedin
50?
residents that I heard from.
Is it 50/50? The lane, is it 50 for bikes? and
Well, I don't
pedals?
want to say, no, I think
no,
it's
no.
bigger for one side versus the other. I don't know which, though.
It's much bigger for the bikes than,
Okay.
yeah, it's maybe 4 feet, 5 feet for the pedestrian and probably 10 feet for the, it's not really for the bikes, but they claim ownership. So if you're walking, I've gotten some dirty looks. I try to stay on the inside away from it, but it's just like,
We
this
have
is our
heavy-
part of the trail, you know, it's like.
We have very heavy bike usage,
Okay.
very heavy. Well, and I think it kind of starts in Palm Harbor and the Causeway area, and then a lot of people will come from Palm Harbor into downtown or from Clearwater into downtown, and they ride their bikes all over that area, kind of.
Okay.
Well,
Sometimes they're bar hopping, sometimes they're exercising, but I mean it is a form of transportation for
Hopping,
people.
drinking water as they bar hop. Yeah, well, but we ought to be working together on this thing because honestly, the bicycle, they seldom stop at
Oh,
the
they're
road.
crazy.
They seldom stop at the road. So we all have a little bit of, we're not all doing exactly what the rules call
Right.
for. So
But I think the markings help.
yeah, they do. It helps remind people a little bit, like if you can, stay in the.
And there is a grass strip in the northern part of the trail that doesn't exist in the southern part of the strip. That's part of the separation.
Yeah.
Rash, okay.
Yeah.
And
Which is really
it
nice.
frequently has our four-legged creatures. Leftovers.
And that's another problem. You've got people with dogs and the long leashes, and then bikes, and then regular pedestrians. The markings really sort of guide people to stay in their lane, so to speak. No pun intended.
I just want to mention that in your informational items under F is Pinellas Trail data, and we are doing something that nobody else is doing. We have a really good trail counting program that's automated counters, not people sitting out there counting. And those automated counters are a best practice statewide, and 164,000 trail users in a month. And the top location is Dunedin north to Palm Harbor.
Dunedin to Palm Harbor.
Palm Harbor, yep.
Part of it is, yeah.
Yeah, that's where we get the most counts. And 164, I think, is just what I remember from April of last year. I think April, March are the peak months. But that's a lot of people out there using the trail.
But it tells you how many people are also at that intersection at Curlew and Alt 19, too.
Yeah, it does.
Kind of, and yeah.
Point taken.
The, yeah, I was going to mention that, but the mayor found out where the counter was, and she just walks back and forth.
So true story. The road tubes that are across the street. I had a citizen work who took a hammer out there at 3 a.m. and hammered the road tubes to show more counts on a road. Of course, they didn't realize that we collect that in 15-minute increments, so we knew exactly when it was, and we knew that 3,000 people weren't out there at 2 a.m.
My goodness. What will they do next?
Yeah, really. Anybody else? Just have two things real quick. Vacancies, the CAC has a St. Pete member, a Largo member, and then a Tarpon Oldsmar Safety Harbor member. LCB has a vacancy, a TD writer, and a public education representative. So I'm going to keep those in mind. I was going to mention the trail counter system. Thank you for that. And I also wanted to thank FDOT for their personalized fatality report, because when you open that up and you see the folks, whether they're 82-year-old grandfather or grandmother that is gone because of something, or a 20-year-old kid who's riding a motorcycle and gets clipped, it's just sad. These are real, to your point about those things that help people visualize the perspective, I guess, is really important. But they do a great job of kind of letting us know whose lives are ending because of safety issues. So, and if I don't see anything else, then we are adjourned. Thank you.